All right, so today I'm going to talk about a subject that many of athletes and friends and endurance athletes in general come up and ask me all the time. I always see postings about it on Facebook, social media. It's the biggest question is nutrition. What do I do? When do I eat? How do I eat it? Where do I eat it? Do I use stuff on the course? Do I bring my own stuff? Well, what's the best stuff out there? How do I get through the run without GI distress? You name it, and people have asked about it. And when I started off endurance sports, doing marathons, I had no clue what I was doing. And I had no clue that you can actually affect your race and affect the outcome by adjusting your nutrition and actually have a decent, pleasant time and not either hit a wall or have GI distress at the end of a race. I just want to go over a few quick things. This is kind of the highlights we're going to hit. Kind of my influences were, I've kind of developed my own thought process on the matter, but I've also got influences outside of my little sphere of influence. There's also the nutrition versus fuel. Fueling is kind of what you're doing in a race to do your workouts, your training, and everything else. Nutrition is kind of what you do with all the 23, 22 hours of the day when you're not working out or recovering or getting ready to work out. So like the bullet point says, training, fuel, and all the other time outside of training is nutrition, because that does have an effect on body composition, energy levels, everything else you can possibly think of. If you're eating not so well during the rest of the day or basically eating like crap, and then you're jamming your face full of sports drinks and energy bars during your workouts, and you're wondering what's going on with the why your energy levels fluctuating, why you're not feeling good, and maybe why you're not losing weight, why your body composition is not changing. That's what's going on, is all the rest of the time outside of that training. Gender does matter. One gender is not better than the other. But if you'll take a quick, hard look at the nutrition industry, it is very much slanted towards the men. A lot of the studies are done with men. And very few are done with women, and gender is different. It does matter when it comes to nutrition. There's just a different way it's been processed in the body, and how that what nutrition, what macros the gender needs in order to make the training nutritional for them. I'm gonna go over race weight. That's everybody's big question. Is I want to get down to race weight. I want to weigh as less as possible, which isn't the best idea. It's not a good mindset to have when you're going into a race. And then I kind of hit some of the fads, hacks, and diets. I'm not a big fan of any kind of fad or hack or diet. I don't like calling what I eat during the day a diet, because then to me it's kind of temporary. So if you're not picking up a way to eat healthy and nutritious 100% of the time, it becomes a diet, and it's just, you can't sustain it, and it's just, there's going to be cycles and frustrations that come along with that. So I'm kind of a big proponent of finding a way to make the nutrition, fuel, just part of your life, whether you're racing or training or not, if you're a big training cycle or not. If you just eat the same way all the time, then you're going to be able to sustain that over the long term. Also, don't want to mention, I am a Ironman University certified coach, part of the association on there, USAT level 1 triathlon coach. I am not a licensed medical professional. So these are kind of my views, my takes of what I've done over time and what works for me and what's worked for athletes that I've worked with. But again, if you need a very specific diet plan, please consult with a physician or nutritionist before you really start on something that's totally different and wild and crazy out there. So a little bit of my influences. Matt Dixon, he's really kind of ramped up the social presence there with Purple Patch Fitness. I do listen to his blog posts, and read his blog posts and podcasts on a regular basis. He's got very good content. I agree with a lot of what he's saying, and it's almost like he's saying the words are in my head. So I agree with a lot of what he's saying. He had Kayla channel on from Nutrition Revolution, and they talked about nutrition, and again, I agreed with a lot of the stuff that they had to say about nutrition. So definitely hit up his podcast, check out the nutrition highlights. I'm sure he'll do a lot better job of the nitty gritty details of all the microbiology that goes behind all this nutrition. So what I like to get out there is nutrition versus fuel. So it's all food, but timing is everything. So depending on what you're doing with it, when is kind of my delineation between is it nutrition or is it fuel. So fuel is what you do immediately before, during, immediately after training. So there's going to be a window before your training, there's going to be the actual training, and then there's going to be the window after training. And that, if you took training out of the picture, then all that stuff wouldn't exist, and you wouldn't be doing it. Nutrition is all the meals throughout the day, so breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, everything you're not doing that's kind of centered around a training block. So and the nutrition and fuel can overlap. I personally kind of overlap my breakfasts and lunches to be the meals after workouts. After my morning workout is when I have breakfast. After lunch workout is when I have lunch. So I'm always fueling after my workouts, and I do my snacks throughout the day to kind of get me ready, especially later in the day when the energy levels are kind of low. They help sustain me through my afternoon, or if I do an evening workout. So this slide is kind of long and drawn out, so you could pause the video to read all the little points. I'll just kind of fly through them. Training and racing for your fuel, for nutrition needs. Timing is crucial. So like I said, there's a kind of a pre-workout window, there's a during a workout and a during a race. Reduce calorie intake on the run and work on easily digestible carbs to end the race. Now's not the time for Big Mac, nut butter, seeds, chews, blocks, gels. So during a race, you want something that's easily digestible, because as you're going through doing the race, the blood flow is going to leave the stomach, especially on the run. You're not going to be able to digest, very complex carbs or foods, Big Macs, pizzas, tacos, whatever you're thinking you're going to slam in your face in either transition or on the run course. If you're wanting to continue the running, now's not the time to have a very big meal or very many solids. I am a proponent of the goos, chew blocks, and gels. Products are actually meant to be digested quickly and get glucose into the bloodstream so you can keep moving. Post-workout's important, and Matt Dixon kind of hits this a lot. You want to make sure that you fuel up with protein and carbs, whole foods, not as much fat because it's not digestible after you've done a workout and you're kind of recovering, and no antioxidants as it slows adaptation. So the 2-hour window after workouts is not necessarily the best time to do your fruits or your berries, blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, any kind of antioxidant products out there. You don't want to immediately flush out all the antioxidants out of your bloodstream, because that is what's helping with adaptation. 45 to 60 minutes after your workout is a golden window. After that, you're really depleting your body of energy and not giving it the substance it needs to actually rebuild and recover from your workout. Not all workouts are the same, so you don't want to fuel them pre, during, and post the same. Anything less than an hour, personally, I don't do much pre-fueling. I kind of morning workouts just kind of roll out of the bed, maybe grab a little bit of a sports drink or just water, even if it's high intensity. Water is definitely key, but usually, early in the mornings, if you're going to do less than an hour, it's not really a key necessity to do pre-workout meals. So also kind of, if you're doing greater than 60 minutes, especially in the morning or higher intensity for longer periods of time, then you might want to think about, when you get up is having, maybe some toasted peanut butter or toast or some overnight oats or something like that to get something in your stomach and not too much, to be able to make it through the beginning of the workout. And then you're going to have to also depend on during your workout fuel. So goos, gels, especially if you're going 2 or 3 hours on a bike ride or 6 hours, whatever you're doing out there, it's scalable. So the shorter workouts, like I said, aren't as necessary for pre and during. You do want to hit them afterwards, especially the long rides too. And long, easy workouts may not require as many calories because you're not expending as much energy. So be a little bit careful, that you don't have a little gut bomb, on a 3-hour kind of zone 1, zone 2 bike ride. You're not going to need as much, and it's going to be a little bit different conditions than when you're out there doing a race at that distance. Race day is different. Your absorption could be up to 20% less on a race day. So I always tell my athletes, when you're going out there, when you're doing the training, try to get to that maximum level, 200 to 300 calories per hour. But on race day, you're not going to get that. So don't try to cram that in your body, because the energy, your output is going to be higher. You're going to want to really, pay close attention to not overfueling. And like I said, that big gut bomb and GI distress, if you're doing a half or full Ironman, you get out there, halfway through or something like that, you've got bloating, you've got issues, you're looking for porta potties. It's not a good thing. So be keenly aware that maybe during a race, and that's the higher intensity workouts, maybe to work on that, is kind of scaling back and playing around with how much nutrition you could take in and be comfortable. And like I said, absorption during a race is going to be a lot less. But when you're training, you want to try to make your body adapt to as many calories as it can absorb as possible. But on race day, no, you're probably not going to reach that level. And I always tell people, train with what you're going to race with. Don't, if you're going to use, Cliff products that are on the run course, don't train with goo or some other. They're all generally the same, but there is little nuances. So, train what you're going to race with. If you're going to bring your own stuff, train with it. If you're going to use what's on the course, go out and buy that stuff. All that other time outside of training. So this is where the other side comes in. A lot of athletes, you're doing all this training, you're doing all this racing, and you're trying to pay attention to what you're eating. They want to lose weight. They want to change their body composition. That's kind of what gets people into the sport and kind of a healthy lifestyle mentality to begin with. But I also got to make sure that people don't go off the deep end, because a lot of people, especially we'll talk about fads later, carbs are not the enemy, especially when you're working out and training to the level of, Olympic to even, full Ironman races. You're putting your body through a lot of stress. And if you're going to go on a low carb diet, training for high long endurance events is probably not the best time to start a diet like that. There are different effective ways that you can incorporate carbs throughout your day. I like to I call it wrap my workout in carbs. So in the mornings, when I have my most carbs, oatmeal, maybe the pizza over lunch after a lunch workout. As I get through the day, my meals get smaller and my carb content goes down. I'd like to say I do that all the time, but I don't. I'm an actual person. So, dessert creeps in there, ice cream, the kids come over, and somebody pops popcorn, throws on a movie. I get it. We're all human. We're all real life. But try to do the best you can. So maybe if you hit 5 days out of 7 during the week, where you kind of keep that mentality, you should see changes, and it may not just be weight. A lot of people get frustrated if they don't lose weight, but you will change body composition. So your muscle percentage to fat percentage might change, but your weight may stay the same or it may go up. You can see on the slide, I kind of got rules of thumb for the macros for daily. I go with a 40-30-30 split. So notice that 30% fats, that is key to getting fat adapted for your body to actually burn fat. So low carb, high fat is not the enemy, but you do need carbs in there. And like I said, that 40% is more towards the beginning of the day, especially when you're going to bed at night. You don't need those carbs for energy. So that's, more towards the evenings. You got a little bit of carbs in there, and then, healthy fats and proteins in there. Don't skip meals. A lot of people, busy lifestyles, you're running around with your head cut off. You do a workout and you got to, take a shower and hit the road, get the kids to school. I always tell my athletes, I pre-plan my meals the night before. I put my overnight oats in the fridge, mix it all up. I've become addicted to cold oatmeal, basically. I can't eat it warm anymore. I actually kind of crave it. So don't knock it until you try it. But don't skip meals. Don't skip breakfast. Don't skip lunch. Don't skip dinner. I know life gets in the way, but, prepare, bring snacks, bring, even the Cliff bars, something like that. It's better than nothing. You don't want your body to go into starvation mode, because then it starts retaining fat, thinking you're trying to starve it to death. So especially during, if you're going to do 20 hours a week of Ironman training, now's not the time to start cutting back on calories. If you do want to lose weight, cutting calories is an option, and being, very detailed in your calorie tracking, your macros. If you got the time, hey, knock it out. But a lot of the athletes I work with, and personally, And 3 kids, I don't have time to sit there and count calories and watch my macros all day. I'll do a check-in once in a while with my fitness pal, kind of map out a week, see where I'm at, see if I need to make changes. But other than that, there's just not hours in the day. Be leery prepackaged foods. I know in this day and age, like I said, everything's on the go. A lot of stuff is great intentions, great marketing, but benefits aren't that great because they got preservatives in there, sodium, to be able to sit on the shelf for weeks at a time before you buy it, or to be able to truck it to wherever you're buying it from. They like to tout all the natural good ingredients in there, but if you can't, kind of the saying goes, if you can't pronounce the ingredients, it's probably not the best for you. And like I said, do as I say, not as I do, because there are some things that I do eat that I probably can't pronounce all the ingredients on, but it's just my advice to you. Stick with whole foods whenever possible. Just fruits, vegetables, you can't go wrong. I'll do the canned stuff, canned peas, canned corn, whenever I'm kind of in a hurry, but corn on the cob, cut it off of there, carrots, broccoli florets, and cook those up. Like I said, preparation is everything. So meal prepping on the weekends, just cook up mass quantities and try to get it all ready. So during the week, you don't have to spend that much time cooking your food. Like I said, especially 3 kids, we don't have time to sit around my house and cook meals every night. So if we didn't do a little prep on the weekends, we'd be kind of hosed. I do like to point out that gender does matter. It's a battle of the sexes, but one's not better than the other. Men do not equal women, women do not equal men. There's just genetic differences especially when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to hormones, when it comes to the molecular structure in the bodies. There is a difference, and what you apply to a man can't necessarily be applied to women the same. And I'm going to put it out there, the hormonal cycle adds a whole other complexity to other dietary requirements. You're going to be depleted on certain macros, so you may need to up the protein, you may need to up the healthy fats more than a man would during, not on a consistent basis, and maybe a rolling cycle that you have to kind of pay attention to. Why is Dan over there doing great, and then I'm over here working out just the same and same intensities, and I feel like crap? We're eating the same thing. Well, there's a problem. You probably need to kind of step back and say, well, women are different. Age and gender matters. So we are more sensitive to carbs as we get older. So, as we creep up there and get more mature endurance athletes, the amount of carbs may not be as high because the utilization of those may not be as efficient. So that's another factor you got to pay attention to. And like I said, women are more sensitive than men. I mean, when you go out there and you see a lot of the case studies done, it's on men, middle-aged men, sometimes endurance athletes, sometimes not. And when you're looking at nutrition for an endurance athlete, you're trying to apply it to a study that was done on non-endurance athletes, and there's just men, you just can't apply it across the board. I like to touch on race weight because everybody asks me about this. I want to get down to race weight. It shouldn't be a weight. Personally, I kind of struggled with this for a while. I always wanted to be lighter because my theory is the lighter you are in the run, the easier it makes it. Problem is, the lighter you are, the less protein you're probably taking in. If you're losing weight or if you're a certain body fat percentage, then you're actually eating away muscle. So that's going to take away strength from the biking, from the swimming, and then you're going to feel like crap. So, make sure the macros is right. Check your body composition. Body fat will change. Your weight may fluctuate up and down. It depends on if you weigh yourself in the morning, the evening, how much water you drink, if you're hydrated enough during the day, if you're not hydrated. Do sweat tests and see what you weigh before and after long workouts. There are so many other things that go in there that, sticking to a number and being upset if you don't reach that number is not a good idea. It shouldn't be a year-round goal. When you're going through your build cycles and your race cycles, recovery cycles, race prep, you should be fit, and your body should be recovered. You don't want to go into a race all worn out and stressed out, and your body's stressed out because you're trying to get to a certain weight and you're restricting calories. It's just a recipe for disaster, injury, not finishing a race, crashing, mentally during a race and having to pull out just because you're not there. Personally, I kind of have a range that I keep in my mind. And if I'm 10 pounds plus or minus throughout the year, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Halloween, my birthday comes in February, if you want to send me a present. Uh, I do like my ice cream cakes for my birthday. So, that time of year, it's okay. You don't have to go out and do 20 hours a week of working out. Just be mindful of what you're putting in your face. Don't go overboard. Don't restrict yourself, because then you start with cravings. Make sure you're eating the right times of day. Pretty much everything I've mentioned will help with the process, especially if there's cravings and you're also trying to struggle with reaching a certain weight. And I kind of say use the macros. I had a slide earlier to kind of, if you've got a weight, in a healthy body fat range that you're looking for, you kind of want to base your macros off what that goal weight is. So just be mindful of where you want to be, where you're at. Make sure it's a healthy goal. Don't necessarily tie to just weight. Maybe look more at body composition, because being big boned is not a joke. There are people, bones and ligaments and everything weigh what they weigh, and no matter what, they're going to weigh the same. So, if you're big boned and, you drank a lot of milk as a kid and got, dense bone structure, it is what it is. You can only get to 0% body fat if you're super dedicated, and it's just not healthy to be at that anyway. Worst time to start a diet and lose serious weight is during intense training. So off season is probably the better time. Always, here, especially in North America, after the holidays hit, New Year's, that's kind of the time to start laying down the base work, get your intensity up, and then start looking at, changing your calories a little bit, changing your macros, and kind of honing in that body composition you're looking for your races. When you're getting into a 25, 20-hour a week build phase, 15 hours a week for a half or something like that, that's probably not the time to be messing around with calorie count and macros as far as trying to focus on a certain weight. At that point, you kind of need to nail it down, and your weight kind of is what it is. Just be mindful that, if you're being excessive with your snacks or desserts or something like that, that there may be room. But ultimately, if you're going along with a good nutritional plan, just kind of go with the flow. There are 200-pound triathletes that run Ironman races that still qualify for Kona. Just because you're a bigger athlete doesn't mean that you can't do well. I do like to touch on the fads, the hacks, and the diets: keto, low carb, high fat. Like I said, the studies, if you look at them, they're usually done on men. So for women, it's kind of a big question mark. There are some people that are successful with it, but man, you got to make it a lifestyle if you want to consistently be at whatever weight. Because if you're going high fat, low carb, the minute you start with those carbs back up, your weight's going to spike back up because your body's not ready. It's just used to processing fat, can't process carb, and it's just going to store as fat. So I just warn people, be smart about what, and I hate calling it diets, you're doing. View it as a lifestyle. So however you want to eat for the rest of your life is probably how you should set it up to be sustainable over time. Because if you go with a diet, after a while, it's another stressor, and you'll probably drop it and just go back to what you're doing before if you can't maintain it. So definitely don't do it if you can't maintain it. We get to sugars. Sugars are not all bad. Mainly during the racing and training is a key time for your sugars, for your glucose. Sitting there binging on Netflix is probably not the time to grab for, your Mountain Dew or anything like that. I recently went to a Quintana Roo open house where they had Matt Hansen on after he won Ironman Texas 2018. On the run, he does Coke, Black Coke and Red Bull. That's probably not what you want to drink just during the day when you're hanging out at work. But when you're out there slamming down 45-minute miles, that's the time your body needs that ready available energy, and it goes straight to energy level to help propel you down the path. Otherwise, if you're sedentary while you're drinking it or eating it, is it going to go straight to fat stores, and the whole race weight, the whole losing weight, the whole thing is all for naught. So be mindful of when you're doing the sugars, Because if you look at the blocks of chews and gels, there's a high carb content, there's high, glycogen content. Be careful what types of sugars are in there. Some people work better with others. Again, that's kind of getting into the very specific nutritionist side of things. If you have comments or questions, feel free to drop them on the YouTube video. I'll do my best to help you out. Be realistic with the sugars though. Going out for your long training ride of 6 miles, you could, power it with a couple dozen donuts. I wouldn't advise it if you're really serious about, wanting to maintain a healthy weight, race weight, and race body composition. You want to do well at your races. Don't go overboard and just say, well, sugar is sugar, so I'm just going to grab some donuts and, Red Bull and Coke. If you're not out there pushing into zone 6, and you're going to immediately use that sugar, it's probably not the time to bust out the donuts, diet, or Coke and Mountain Dew on training run or ride. Kind of a summary of all of what I've been talking about, especially the macros, the protein, the fat, the carbs. The ultimate goal is to have as much energy as you can during your race. So there's a finite amount of calories you have available in our body at any given time without any additional food or nutrition or sports drinks or anything. At certain zones, your body will burn a certain percentage of carbs versus fats. The goal, especially with the healthy fats, is to get your body comfortable and used to working on absorbing fats that you digest instead of sitting to fat stores. So the better that you are at working out long periods of time with high fat content in your diet or in your nutrition that you're eating on a regular basis, your body is able to learn to better burn fat during longer, slower workouts. And as you get faster with those workouts, it's the old adage, the zone 2 working out, I have to walk, keep my heart rate down. Well, that's what you're doing that for, is to let your body adapt, especially burning fats. So the goal is to move that center part where the exercise intensity, where fat needs carbs and you're burning, you want to move that over to the right. So the higher intensity you're working out, the more fats you're burning, so the less calories you have to take in during a race. Wouldn't it be awesome that you do a whole Ironman and you don't have to go out and eat any extra, carbs or goos or anything? That's not realistic. But, you can minimize, especially like I mentioned before, if your body can absorb only 20%, or 80% of what you normally would be able to take in a training ride or run, then, where are you going to get that extra 20%? It'd be great if your body could learn to burn the fat that's already on your body, because, maybe in carbs, usable carbs in your bloodstream, you got 2,000 calories, fat stores in your body at any given time, depending on body fat percentage, like 100,000 calories. I mean, it's an infinite amount. If you're in the low zones doing a long run, potentially you won't have an energy crisis situation. If you've got GI distress or other issues going on, you potentially stop eating, let whatever's in there kind of pass through or digest wherever you need to. And it's not going to be the end of the world if you can't take anything in, you can't eat. You're not going to die on the race course. So ultimately what we're the overall picture is, finding a nutrition that is sustainable, that helps teach your body to better utilize the fat stores in the body, to better process it at higher intensities. So when you're doing your race, you actually don't have to take in as much calories from carbs to keep going. So kind of last impressions, changes take time. Don't change it in 1 week or 1 weekend or even a month and expect immediate success. After a few weeks, you should see changes, and I would definitely recommend changing small things at a time. Maybe it's changing what you have for breakfast. If you're a big steak and eggs kind of person, maybe you switch over to oatmeal, and that's the only thing you change. Everything else stays the same. Or making sure you drink enough water during the day. Everything else stays the same. You eat the same stuff, just drink more water, see what happens. Don't always ask your friend what works for him. You can and try it out, but don't be upset if what works for him and he's out there killing it doesn't work for you. especially with all the products out there nowadays. Some stuff works for some people and some doesn't work for other people. And like I said, with the gender thing, you know, if if your friend's a dude and you're a woman, then what's working for him may not work for you. Make it a habit. That makes it sustainable over time. Don't make it a diet. Don't make it a fad choice. You know, if it just stresses you out to be able to keep maintaining that nutrition plan and fueling for your races, you know, then you take a step back and look and find a way that makes it sustainable. Because that's kind of what we're after is something that's sustainable over time. That's a lifestyle. Especially if you do these races, Ironman, full Ironman, Olympic distance, triathlons, multi-sport, running, marathons, whatever you're doing, you know, you want to be successful. You don't want to burn out after a couple of years. You don't want to start getting injured. And nutrition is a big key to that. A lot of people, especially when I started off, you know, in 2005, doing my first marathon 13 years ago, you know, I had no idea what I was doing with nutrition. You know, I hit the wall mile 20, didn't know I was doing hydration, nutrition, and just through racing and over time and doing my certifications and courses and conferences, there's better ways to do it. And again, you know, hit my website, www.setthepacetriathlon.com. It's all one word, setthepacetriathlon.com. You can always catch me there on my Facebook page. There's a link on there. You can post questions as a video. I'll try to help you out. I know I kind of ran through it real quick, but I didn't want to kind of put too many people to sleep. So there's a lot more to it. I post tips on my Facebook page all the time. And like I said, every person's not the same. So what works for you may not work for the other person. And maybe you haven't found anything that worked yet, but drop me a line and we'll see what we can do.